as we go. But first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar that we're hosting today about apprenticeship programs for your companies. I think it's worth us just saying that some of the content today might be slightly different for those in the devolved regions, but we'll try to help you wherever you're based in the UK, and I'm sure there will be information here that is relevant to you, say wherever your company is located. So as we, you'll have basically the chance to hear from our partners, Dudley College, the Elite Centre for Manufacturing Skills and Foundry Training Services Limited, who are all here to help you, and so you can meet them, albeit virtually. It's going to be a team effort today, so thanks to Richard, who will be controlling the slides, and to all of our presenters and organisers. Clearly today's focus is principally about the casting, foundry and pattern making specific apprenticeships. But some of what we talk about will be relevant to other programs that training providers offer. So things like maintenance, business administration, business improvement techniques, and so on. I'd just like to also note that this session is being recorded so that we can make it available to anyone who's not been able to join today, or you can listen back if you've missed anything. We'll also be taking 1 or 2 screenshots during the webinar for our own and future marketing. So I'd like you, if you're not one of the presenters today, I'd like to ask you please to mute your microphone during the presentations so that we don't hear any background noise. You should see a speech bubble on your screen somewhere, probably towards the top right, and you can use this to type any questions that you'd like to ask. We will read these out later on after the presentations and ask our presenters to answer them for you. So feel free to add questions at any point during today's session. So what will today's programme include? Well, you'll have the opportunity to hear about who can undertake an apprenticeship, about financial support that's available to your company to support you and the learner. Then we shall talk about the apprenticeship standard that apprentices will follow and what the delivery programme actually looks like, including what will be expected from you as the employer. Then we can tell you about the National Foundry Training Centre and let you have a look inside with a virtual tour. As you will know, and as we've heard in the press, there are many young people looking for an opportunity presently. So this is an ideal opportunity to bring someone new into your company. And I think you'll have your pick, actually, of young people looking for an opportunity. But you can also use an apprenticeship to upskill someone who you think could benefit from the development opportunity. So this might be an existing employee. I've been surprised recently by the number of job vacancies that are being advertised in recent weeks. And I do think that as a sector, we do need to invest more in the future talent pipeline, if only to enable the rest of us to retire at some point. So if we move on to the next slide, without further ado, I'd like to invite Ian Cole from Dudley College to start us off. Over to you, Ian.
Thanks very much, Pam. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So as Pam just said a moment ago, I'm Ian Cole. I'm the business manager for engineering and manufacturing apprenticeships at Dudley College, and we're proud to be one of the partners with the National Foundry Training Centre, ECMS and Cast Metals Federation. So I just thought I'd just spend a few minutes just putting into context what an apprenticeship is. Certainly don't want to patronise anybody who's dialed in. I'm aware that a lot of you will be time-served apprentices yourselves, and by virtue of you being on this call, I'm sure you're supportive of apprenticeship schemes in general already. So as it says on the slide there, the first point about who an apprenticeship is for, I think most people already know that it's a great way of bringing new talent into your business. I think, as Pam said a moment ago as well, perhaps as an industry, we need to look at as apprentices as a way of growing our own talent to replace an ageing workforce, which is a very common conversation I have with employers on what seems like a daily basis, not just for the foundry industry, but manufacturing in general, perhaps. So apprentices have always been a good way of bringing new talent into your business, but also apprenticeships, and this one in particular, is a great way of upskilling existing staff as well. So don't be misled by the title apprenticeship or the perception that apprenticeships are always for new staff. Because what this does is give you an opportunity to have a structured training program to bring some of your existing staff skills up to where you need them to be. Also, another myth I'd like to dispel is that apprenticeships aren't just for 16 to 18-year-olds. And actually, when I move on and talk about sort of financial incentives there are now for employers, you'll see that the government are really trying to do more to encourage both employers and people to consider apprenticeships regardless of age. So there's not actually an age limit anymore on apprenticeships, and we work with people you know, from 16 up, no upper age limit. In terms of the apprenticeship qualification or the level of training, the metal casting, foundry and pattern making apprenticeship that we deliver in partnership with the partners on the call today is a level 3 program, which is very much at technician level. So it's reasonable for you to expect that if you put somebody through this course, they would be competent by the end, we'd hope. By no means time served, but will have had all the training and skills and knowledge to technician level. But also, as part of that structured program, everybody will get the opportunity to undertake an English and math qualification up to level 2, which is sort of GCSE grade C equivalent in old money, I suppose, as part of the program. So whilst the metal casting, foundry and pattern making modules are the core of the program, there's also the opportunity for people maybe who didn't achieve the grade they wanted to in English and maths to get that as part of the program. Next slide, please, Richard. Thanks very much. So in terms of how you can find your apprentice, the people that you want to bring into the business, we're here to help. So as Dudley College of Technology, we offer a free recruitment service to all employers who are looking to bring an apprentice into their business. And as you can see on the screen there, we are happy to do all that sort of front-end legwork for you in terms of advertising, screening and filtering candidates, and doing our best to give you a manageable shortlist. We know that you're all busy running businesses and keeping industry going, so we like to try and sort of help with that burden of admin and making sure the right sort of people see the opportunity, and then we'll, as I say, try and give you a manageable shortlist. And then once you've found the right candidate for you that you want to bring into your business, we'll take care of all the paperwork with you as well, as you'd expect. So, you know, there is a little bit of admin and red tape to go through, like on any government-supported scheme, but we're there to hold your hand through the whole process. And as I say, it's a free recruitment service, and we've got a full-time dedicated team based at Dudley College who will advertise and fill that opportunity for you. But it's very much a service that we offer nationally across the whole country. So the apprenticeship opportunity would be listed against your postcode wherever you are in the country, and obviously that means we'll be able to make sure you get local candidates to you. And we've got quite used over the last 12 months to working remotely and talking to candidates over the phone or technology such as this afternoon. So we can still make sure we're sort of trying to filter out the candidates for you ahead of you meeting them either virtually or in person. So please get in touch with me as a follow-on conversation after today if you think we could help you find your apprentice. Next slide, please. Thank you. And obviously one of the other most important questions employers want to know and sometimes need a little bit of guidance on is what support is there in a financial sense. Obviously you as an employer are taking on a cost bringing an apprentice into the business. I think it's probably fair to say that the biggest cost for a business are the hidden ones of the cost of staff time in terms of mentoring and training and shadowing your experienced guys, because a real apprenticeship is about learning hands-on skills. But there's a lot of support available at the moment financially for employers who are looking to bring apprentices into the business. And I'm sure you probably saw in the recent budget news that the government announced that they were enhancing and extending the incentive scheme, where now any employer that brings an apprentice into their business between the 1st of April and the 30th of September will be entitled to a grant of £3,000. And again, that's regardless of age. So whereas up to the 31st of March, there was sort of a sliding scale of incentives. Now there's no upper age limit on that £3,000 incentive. But actually, it's still a little bit more of a carrot for employers to take on an apprentice who's 16 to 18 years old, because there was an existing £1,000 incentive that you're all entitled to, and that remains. So actually, if you take a 16 to 18-year-old apprentice on between the 1st of April and the 30th of September, it's actually £4,000 you'd be entitled to. And again, that's something we can support you with in terms of applying and accessing that funding. It's not an onerous process. If you bring them into the business and they go on your payroll, you're eligible for the grant. That's pretty much the criteria. You just need to access that through an online apprenticeship account, which will help you set up. In terms of other funding that's available, there is the apprentice minimum wage, which is slightly different to the national minimum wage. So again, forgive me for going through this if you're already an employer who is aware of this, but the apprentice minimum wage is just about to change to £4.30 an hour from April. And that's obviously different and lower to the national minimum wage. There's a couple of reasons for that. I think one is a recognition from government that if you bring an apprentice into the business, as I said a moment ago, it perhaps costs you more in the short term than you might gain from having that apprentice. This is very much an investment for the medium to long term. So there's a recognition in that respect. And also there's an expectation that the apprentice is paid for their training hours as well. So when we come on in a moment to talk about the delivery model, and they're spending, perhaps 1 week a month away from the business on training, you'd still obviously be paying that apprentice their wage at that point. And the third strand of support in terms of funding is in the cost of the training itself. And the good news is that regardless of size of business, there will be some support available for you in terms of covering the cost of the programme. So if you take a 16 to 18-year-old on and you're a small employer who has less than 50 staff on your head count, then the government will cover 100% of the training costs, and you won't be asked to pay anything towards the course fees. If, however, you're slightly bigger as a business and you've got more than 50 staff, or if the apprentice is already 19 or older, at the time that they start their apprenticeship with you, it's a slightly less generous model in that the government will fund 95% of the cost of the training, and you'll just be asked to make a 5% contribution, which you'd pay at the start of the course, and that would cover the whole cost of the training programme. However, if you're a large employer and your head count is probably more like 120 or above, then you'll already be paying into the apprenticeship levy, which, depending whether you're a large business or not, you might already be aware of this, but essentially that money's already been taken off you as a business if you pay into the levy, but you can recoup that levy contribution into apprenticeship training. And the metal casting, foundry and pattern making apprenticeship we're talking about today specifically is approved on that list to be funded in that way. So I think that covers the key points around funding. Obviously, I'll be happy to take questions towards the end. If I could just ask to move on to the next slide, please. So lastly, from me, the question around when can they start? Well, in terms of recruitment, as I said a moment ago, we recruit all year round at the college. So although we have set start dates for the block release delivery, our message to you today is very much, if you've got capacity to bring an apprentice into your business now or at any point in the year, we don't expect you to be led by our term time. We want to be led by your demand in the business. So we're happy to advertise and recruit all year round. And again, over the last 12 months, with the need to work remotely or through blended learning online, we've actually been able to adapt the course slightly where the physical attendance at the training centre might not be for a little while, but there's still plenty of activities we can be getting on with in the meantime. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can to make sure that we don't stop either any apprentice or business being able to start the programme because you're waiting, 9 months for the next intake in September or whenever it may be. And the last point on the slide there, as you can see, is cohorts are very much based on demand. So we've just had a new one start in January, which we're really pleased to be able to get one in right at the start of the calendar year. We're already fielding inquiries for the next cohort. And I think we're provisionally thinking, historically, that would be around September time. But depend upon the demand from you guys as employers, we'll be happy to look at when that might best suit everybody. So the message very much is, if you think you could take an apprentice into your business or you see this as an opportunity to plug a skills gap, please talk to us, and I'd like to think an apprentice might be the way to go. And at that point, I think I'll hand back over to you, Pam.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ian. Now Ian's staying around to answer any questions that you have as well. And I say, just a reminder, you can speak to any of us at any point after today, or pop questions that you might have that pop into your head now. You can pop them into the chat function. Now we've heard about quite a bit about funding there, funding for training, and also the fact that training is delivered on a block basis. And we're very aware that many of you may not be based in the Midlands. So necessarily your apprentices would need to travel and to stay in the Midlands to attend the parts of the training that is delivered in the training centre. And obviously we're geared up to support that as well. The college can suggest suitable hotels locally that have been approved for use for apprentices of different ages, and which you can book for them. Typically, this is sort of, say, from a Sunday night through the week for as long as the session is continuing. And obviously, Michaela will talk a little bit about that in a moment. But I'd also like to mention the Tor Lodge and Applecross Trust. Now, this is an independent charity which can offer companies discretionary grants towards the costs of the travel and accommodation. So this is really trying to level the playing field for people in different regions. Any of us can provide details of the Tor Lodge Trust and the application form that you can use to make applications. So we're very lucky to have this available for companies who are, say, not based in the Midlands, and for whom there would be additional costs for apprentices and their companies. Okay, now we're going to hear from Michaela French, who is from Foundry Training Services Limited. Now, this is the training provider working very closely with Dudley College to deliver all the technical training to your apprentice. So over to you, Michaela.
Thank you, Pam. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. As Pam has just said, I'm Michaela French and I manage Foundry Training Services. And the apprenticeship that we are talking about is the metal casting, foundry and pattern making technician. And as we've already discussed earlier, it is a level 3 qualification, so it does involve quite a broad range of activities and does require different applications of skills, knowledge and occupational behaviours. So the apprentice or your apprentice will develop a solid grasp of the core job skills that will enable them to work in a logical and systematic approach, which can only be having a positive impact on your business. Going sort of back historically, the standard was actually designed by industry experts and employers. And then obviously FTS is a company that deliver on that standard, partnered with Dudley College at the CMF centre. Next slide, please, Richard. So I won't insult you all by reading through all of the different areas that we cover there, but there is a list of certain subject areas there for you if you wanted to just cast your eyes over those. Obviously, for each of those areas, there is a set of core skill, knowledge and behaviour elements, and there is also the core skills, knowledge and experience all then goes, and the behaviour, sorry, all then is enriched by choosing some optional pathways, which we'll talk about in a little while in the next couple of slides. But hopefully you've all had an amount of time to read through the areas that we look at within the qualification. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Richard. So the entry requirements there have been touched on slightly by my colleague Ian. The apprentice is your employee, and each employer will have their set of selection criteria for the apprentice. Now, that said, we would advise that the apprentices do hold 4 GCSEs at a grade 4 or old money C, or the equivalent. And the reasons for that is because a lot of the work that is embedded within all of the units is quite, we go quite in depth and quite in detail, and there are some very skilled technological mathematician areas that would need to be looked at as well within there. So it's advisable that they do have an element of sort of a basic GCSE grade there. Maths and English it would be great if they could come to us with that grade 4 in maths and English. However, as my colleague has said there, if they haven't got it, we can support them to achieve that level 2 for both English and maths. The reason that they have to have the level 2 English maths is to form part of the standard requirement. It is a government requirement that in order to achieve a level 3 apprenticeship, you do need to have that level 2 English and maths. The most important thing that we value really highly, and it's vitally important that not only is the employer completely committed to this, it's also important that the candidate or the apprentices as well. And of course, if they're demonstrating that commitment to yourselves in the workplace and you identify they have certain strengths and skills in which you feel that they could bring and use the apprenticeship to grow and develop themselves, then of course that would most certainly be sort of paramount when we're looking at selection criteria. Next slide, please, Richard. Okay, so what does the training programme actually look like? So it's 27 to 33 months, and this is for both the on and off job training. And it does focus quite heavily on the practical side of the foundry. That's what it's created for. It's to get those skills, the core skills in working in a foundry. However, that said, there are quite a lot of theoretical elements as well that need to be included in that. So please, one piece of advice I'd like to give today is please, it's not just a practical qualification where they're going to go straight into the foundry and start to melt metals or create patterns. There is an element of theory quite robust theoretical classes involved. As discussed, as Ian mentioned earlier, in an ordinary world, we would be attending a block basis. So it is approximately 1 week per month. So what would happen is the apprentices usually, if they are not from sort of the area of the West Midlands, they do tend to have a hotel booking from the previous evening, so the Sunday evening. They begin work with Foundry Training Services on Monday morning at 8:30 sharp, and the day finishes at 5:30. They then work through Monday to Thursday using that model, and on a Friday they will work generally from 8:30 to 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then we send them back home or to yourself. Within that duration of time, they will receive all of the practical and theoretical elements of the programme, classroom delivery, pattern shop, foundry, and IT suite. It would all be timetabled appropriately to sort of how long they've been on programme. The apprentices are required to build a portfolio of evidence throughout the duration. Now, that portfolio of evidence isn't perhaps something that we're all familiar with, in that they get a lever arch file and they start to put bits and bobs in there, because obviously a lot of it can't be put into a file. So what we do is, yes, we do use a portfolio to collate evidence, but we also use a logbook. And that logbook will allow each apprentice to draw any patterns, designs that they've had. It will allow them to put photographic evidence in with descriptions of what each is. And that's purely and simply for them to showcase for the endpoint assessment, which is where we'll go sort of in the next slide or two. Now, the programme, the model of delivery, is purely and simply led by a group of tutors who are highly skilled and experienced foundry personnel, all of which began life as an apprentice, and all of which have progressed through the foundry in various career roles, senior management, internationally, and who wanted to give something back to the foundry, but also wanted to help the industry stay alive and keep that heart beating within it. They've all undergone their educational training and qualified. So the apprentices would be in some really, really fantastically highly skilled hands. The apprentices will all take part in industry visits. So the reason we do that, we take them to various different locations and foundries all over sort of the length of England. And the reason for that is a couple, really. Obviously, we get to give them the experience of seeing other foundries and how other foundries work, with the potential of sharing good practice and ideas. And one of the main reasons really is so that they have an experience and are able to identify in perhaps areas in which their own workplace doesn't have. So for an example, they might predominantly work in a pattern shop, and the foundry they work in doesn't actually hold the furnaces. So we take them to see various sort of, we could go to sort of William Cook's. There are various places we go so that they'd get different experiences. And just a final point on that, they do have the opportunity, should they wish, to become members of ICME, and it's a student membership which sort of lasts them through for the duration of the apprenticeship. Next slide please, Richard. So the endpoint assessment, I will just touch on this for you. I know it looks like there's a lot on the slide there, but I just wanted you to understand the process really. So we've spoken about the recruitment, we've spoken about the model and the delivery. What happens at the end? There are no exams attached to this qualification at all. Each apprentice goes through what's called an endpoint assessment process, and what happens is after the 27 to 33 months, you as the employer will decide that the apprentice is consistently working at or above the levels set in the standard. Now, the training provider, us and Dudley College, we can actually sit and help you to form that decision, which is where we go through everything that they do throughout the programme. And a endpoint assessment organisation would be recruited for that. So FTS, ECMS, Dudley College are not actually the endpoint assessment provider. It has to be an independent company that offer this. And again, they are experienced assessors and trained in assessment and grading. They also have to have quite an extensive foundry knowledge as well. The apprentices will have to provide that evidence of the level 2 English and maths. And as I said previously, they can either do that by presenting GCSE qualifications, copies of the certificates, or alternatively, if they've carried out the achievement of those both level 2s, we will retain a copy of their certificates for that. Now, it does say there that EPA can take place at the apprentices or employers' premises wherever possible. Obviously, that's going to be the most beneficial model in which we look at, because they're going to be working at those premises, they're going to be familiar with the area, and so there'd be an element of sort of familiarity and comfort within that. So as I said, there's no exams. What actually happens is that each apprentice will undergo a technical interview, which will be supported by the showcasing of their portfolio of evidence with the logbook. And they undergo a practical observation with questioning. So where do we fit into that? We will just simply support, first and foremost, the apprentice to get to the point of being endpoint ready, but we'll also support you in ensuring that they're consistently working to that level. Next slide, please, Richard. So again, we've sort of said what we do for the apprentice and how we can help you with the EPA. What do we do for you throughout the duration? We pride ourselves actually in engaging with our employers quite well, and it's vitally important we offer a quality service and that we keep you involved, and we do that in various ways. Each of the tutors will carry out regular updates and send progress reports to you, the employer. Now, that's for the good or the bad. It's not simply a case of something's not particularly going well, so we're on the case with it. It's whether it's good or bad, so we'll sort of send compliments and sort of complaints as equal. As I've said earlier, the tutors are all very, very experienced foundry personnel, and they've also got qualifications which will enable them to coach and mentor, and with that will come an element of pastoral care, which, not to insult any, because I'm sure you fully understand what I'm saying about that. We do have a duty of care to the apprentice, and obviously we need to make sure that they're working in a healthy and a safe environment, and we'll work with you to achieve that. I'm sure that it's not applicable. We offer industry-specific training. This is to address the national skills shortfall. There is a national skills shortfall. It was identified years ago, and this is the reason why this standard was created and the National Foundry Training Centre indeed was built. And the final point on this slide is that we offer one-to-one support to all of the apprentices. So what generally will happen is the tutors will have a one-to-one meeting with the apprentices. Generally, it's about every 3 to 4 weeks, a touch base meeting where they check progress and such. Sometimes it can move to be 2 to 3 weeks, and sometimes it can go to be weekly. It just depends on how the apprentice is ticking along. Sometimes we get thrown a curveball in life and they need that little bit of extra support. And equally, you can be involved in that as well, and we'd actually warmly welcome your involvement in that. The one-to-one support also, every 8 to 10 weeks, we have to, as part of the government guidelines, complete a progress review with each of the apprentices. And again, it would be fantastic if we could have all employers involved in that. I think it's vitally important, you know, how far your apprentices have got and what they're achieving and any support that they may need. Next slide, please, Richard. Okay, so we actually created a film, again, with the support of CMF, which will give you a little bit of an insight into the foundry, and we've got a couple of apprentices in there, so it's a really good film. We're really proud of it, and I'd like for you all to just spend a couple of minutes watching this, please. And as my colleague said, if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at the end.
This new National Founder Training Centre is a great facility that offers the opportunity for us to give practical training to young people in the industry and even to upskill people who are already in the industry. It came about through some investment by the Black Country Let, who went out and sourced some funding. Through that, we've been able to build this fabulous new centre. I have to say as well, support from the side of the industry has been absolutely fantastic, with many of them donating time and equipment to the centre.
I've been in the industry for 25 years. I've been an apprentice just like the learners here, and I want to get involved really because there's a massive gap in our need for skills in our industry. Which areas, high pressure areas and mixed with pressure leakage. So I teach casting simulation technology, and I use a practical approach. So we have the software on site here at the Elite Centre, and the students get to use the software themselves and use their own castings to simulate during course, so it's practical and relevant.
The learning techniques we use for the apprentices tend to follow applied type learning, which involves much hands-on and practical and actual technical information. The way we do this is we will give them a technical lesson, but then we will break the lesson up, come into the foundry which we have, and we will be demonstrating what we've just been teaching them in the classroom.
We can offer a variety of practical training, upskilling. We can teach people in a safe place. I think it really is a fantastic boon for the UK foundry industry.
What I enjoy about working at Foundry Training Services is bringing all the modern teaching methods, i.e. blended learning and technological innovations, which we have in abundance here. Plus, we have a very, very experienced team which I to be a member of. We relate all our previous experience to the theory and method that we apply in modern foundries today.
Whilst we're here in Black Country, it's important to recognise that this is a centre for the whole of the UK industry. Apprenticeships are delivered in week-long books for the duration. There is support, accommodation and travel for apprentices while they're here, and that support comes from the Tor Lodge and Apple Cross Trust. So really, I think we can confidently say that this is a centre for the whole of the UK industry.
qualified engineer that's practical and useful to you.
To my employer, I would take that opportunity because not only will it underpin their own business, but it would also enable them to upskill their business and improve their business.
My granddad was based in the family industry. He worked at this place I'm at now for about 4 years. I've enjoyed working in the workshop with everyone, seeing how they get on and like sort of comparing it to myself and learning from others as well. This apprenticeship taught me a lot socially, but as well it's made me sort of bring my head on a bit, because being around other people with a good work drive sort of pushed me forward to be the same.
On a day-to-day basis, we do some theory aspects in the classroom, learning from the students. We do practical aspects as well, and we follow the whole process from beginning to end. Completely different. I'm hopeful these skills will allow me to potentially develop my role at the current employer I'm at now, spectrum of responsibilities and such. I'd just like to develop myself so I'm more useful to the company.
I enjoy method engineering because it's quite an interesting subject. I had no idea that it existed before coming here. I think the facilities are really good. It's quite sort of specialised to our course, and it's been set up really well.
I'm optimistic that this new centre will enable young people coming to have a fantastic future. We're looking for progression. We hope to be able to offer higher level programmes in the future, but this is a really good start point for young people wanting to have a practical understanding of the UK foundry industry. We're very much part of the circular economy. Castings are everywhere, and the future for the industry is very positive if we can get technicians coming to be the future leaders of our industry.
Great, thank you. Well, for me that was slightly jerky, but hopefully you got the gist of it. But as I say, hopefully that just reinforced some of the points that we were making earlier. So now we've got a chance to hear from Chris Manifold from the ECMS, who can really tell you a bit more about how the Foundry Training Centre came into being. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Pam. So I'm Chris Manifold. I'm the project manager for the Elite Centre for Manufacturing Skills project. So we are funded by the Black Country LEP through their growth fund, and we were set up to address the skills shortages in SMEs in the high volume manufacturing sector in the Black Country. Although now we've had our remit extended and we're able to help any SME in the UK, so it's a bit broader now. We were founded by 6 partner organisations joining together to develop the original bid, and that included Dudley College and the Cast Metals Federation and the University of Wolverhampton as the lead partner. And we used the bulk of the funding to set up the 2 hubs, one at Springfield on the Springfield campus at Wolverhampton, and then the National Foundry Training Centre at Tipton. We also used some of the funding to put equipment into Dudley College, which is in the form of welding kit, and also into income training, where we have a press line. So next slide, please, Richard. So I've just popped a couple of pictures there for you to see. So the top one is the Springfield hub. We're in what was the former Springfield Brewery in what were the stables, and it's quite a nice building inside. It's quite modern. Below is the National Foundry Training Centre at Tipton, and that's where we train the apprentices. So next slide, please, Richard. So just to tell you a bit more about Springfield, we've got 3 training rooms there, and we've got a metallurgy lab, and we've also got quite a large exhibition space. That's 195 square metres and an IT suite. And then over at the National Foundry Training Centre, which is managed by Colin, who's going to be telling you all about this next and showing you around, we've got 2 training rooms, an IT suite, which includes SolidWorks, which is CAD software, and MagmaSoft software, which is casting process simulation software. So apart from that, we also offer a range of training courses that aim to be attractive to the industry, and it includes things like grants advice, 3D printing, marketing and standard MS Office software training. We also have training rooms that we can hire out, and also some of our facilities we can also hire. If you're an SME, you can get those free of charge. And if you are interested in subscribing to our newsletter, there's a little email address there for you to contact, or you can give us a ring. And I'll now hand you over to Colin, and he can show you around the training centre.
Yes, great. Thanks, Chris. So over to you, Colin. Colin's going to try and, well, we hope the technology will work for us. We've got a walkthrough so you can actually see some of the facilities. So just be a couple of moments while we hand over the presentation control to Colin, and then he can take over and guide us through. So when you're ready, Colin.
Thank you, Pam. Let's see if I can get this on.
Yeah, well, so hopefully we've got a bit of a virtual tour so you can see the facilities, which we hope will work. Of course, once we're back in the centre, if any one of you want to come and visit, then you'd be very welcome to do so as well. Yeah, here we go. So we're just loading up now.
That should be coming up now.
Okay.
There we go. Can you all see that?
Yep, got that. Over to you then, Colin. Great.
Fantastic. So, yeah, thank you, Chris. My name's Colin Wharton, and I manage the National Foundry Training Centre. As been noted, we're very lucky to have this facility. It's the only foundry training centre in the UK, and it's the first one that's been built for over 20 years. So, yeah, we're very lucky to have this place. As you can see, this is our reception. So you can see on the wall there, we've got a list of our sponsors who've been behind our vision of what we want to do. Now, that's only a small amount of our sponsors. If I wanted to get everybody who's behind our cause, then I'd need a bigger foundry. So if we move, you can see there, before I move on, a bit jerky this screen, forgive me for that. We do have all our COVID-19 precautions in place. So we have to stringently abide by all the government guidelines. So this is our locker room, printer room. So there's 20 red lockers in here that the students can use to keep their personal belongings. We've also got our navy blues on there that the students will change into for any casting processes, and our printer there that they need to use for any theory work. So if we move back to our reception, I'll screen up a bit. There we go. So this is our classroom. So you can see the chairs and spaced out, obviously for COVID. This is where we teach our foundry theory and technical drawing. You note on the wall there is our 65-inch smart screen, touch smart screen, that's interactive to all the other screens in our foundry, as well as our Springfield hub facility. So if we move back to our classroom, this is our IT suite. Now our IT suite's got 20 PC units, and I'm all equipped with the latest version of SolidWorks. And 10 units also have MagmaSoft as well, which is obviously a casting simulation software. And you can see in the back, we also have a smart screen that the tutor can use for ease of presentation, very visual. Oops. Sorry about this. There we go. Right, so if we move further through our building, this is our boardroom on the left. Now this doubles up as an extra classroom, but also we host meetings here. So we can also put extracurricular training on, such as first aid. And again, we've got the interactive smart screen in the back. So if I can show you our canteen. So you can see this is an atypical canteen that the students use. It's equipped with all dishwasher, microwave, fridge, freezer. tea and coffee making facilities. So if I move back through our building and take you into what I like to refer to as the heart of the building, our foundry. Before I get there, I'll just show you a few things. This is our first aid room, our fully equipped first aid room, which you can see is unused. That's exactly what I'd like to see. I can't stress enough, health and safety is paramount. We're not a production-based facility. It's a training facility. If it takes us extra time to make something the right way, that's the way we'll do it. You can see our PPE station there. This is our sun testing lab. We have on the left all our physical sun testing equipment to measure permeability, sun strength, strength, etc. On the back wall, we have our spectrometer, which gives us chemical analysis of the metals the students cast. And we have sample prep in the far corner. We've also got our microscope as well. So this is our foundry. As you can see in front of you there, we've got 6 benches that we use for free moulding. We can use Petrobond moulding in there. We can use green sand moulding. We have a space denoted in the corner there. That's the area there in front of you. That's earmarked for metrology and 3D printing. We do have 2 firearms that we'll be using, which is obviously an integral part of the QC process. This is our sand plant itself. So we use an alkaline phenolic based system, which out of all the sand systems, air set sand systems you get, it was decided because of longevity, costs, curing time, this would be the most efficient for the students to use. And all the machines that we do use, they've all got standard operating procedures in place. So that's just a training aid. It's a visual training aid. So the uninitiated can use a step-by-step guide to how to use the machines. So we have our furnaces in front of you there. You can see our nice little figure there. You must be dressed like that to use the furnaces. Say again, safety, safety, safety. Foundries are dangerous places anyway. A foundry training centre, doubly so. So we have 2 little 25 kilo furnaces there. We have all our metal additions in the corner there. As you can see, everything's governed by 5S. Everything's labelled up correctly. Our casting line. So when the moulds are cured, we have the metals poured, the moulds poured. Our tornado system there, our extraction system, takes all the fumes away. And it has been commented by visitors from other countries how good this system is. Now, the system was provided by DCE, and we as Foundry paid for the installation. This is our little attrition unit. So when the metal's cured, the moulds are pushed into our attrition unit, the sand's broken down, and then blown pneumatically back to the hopper for reuse. This is our little fettling and dressing area. It's one of the plans that we want to do for the future. We want all this fully enclosed with proper extraction on it. But our air benches are second to none. We have a ferrous and non-ferrous fettling bench. I've just laid out there, you can see the foundry in a box kit that CMF have put together. So we can use that for any schools that I'm visiting around, and to also aid the students when they first begin. Can I just say that any questions as well, we'll be happy to answer at the end of all this tour. This is our pattern shop. So this is where the students are taught every area of pattern making, from setting out, technical drawing, making patterns, core boxes, all governed under best practice. You can see our little 3-axis CNC machine there, our XYZ machine. We have a metal lathe in the corner, pedestal drill, planer, thickener, bandsaw, sanding disc and bobber. So everything really you find in a standard pattern shop. So So that is really our foundry. So I want to virtually lead you back to the start.
Thank you very much. That's great, Colin. I think that's given everybody a real insight. I mean, I say it's fully functional, fully operational. It may not mirror exactly what people have in their foundries, but it's pretty representative. And obviously the learners can be learning back in the workplace as well. I think it's fair to say, albeit it's focused mainly on sand casting, I think it's fair to say that we do, and Michaela and her team do have people from different sectors in the industry, and certainly in the programme there are units that cover the different sectors of the industry. So I think the aim is to give everybody a good underpinning basis for them to develop thereafter. So thanks to all of our presenters. Next slide, please, Richard, because we've got all the contacts there on the screen of all the people you've heard from today, and also our own offices at the Cast Metals Federation. And we're, I think the thing to say is that we're all here to help, and we'll certainly try and signpost you in the right direction. Now, I'm not sure if we've got any questions in the chat, but if you have any questions, obviously feel free to put them in there. I've got a couple just in the meantime. Just a question for Ian, really. Now, we obviously understand that apprentices, and you've made it very clear that apprentices can be existing employees, but presumably then the company can't get the incentive payments, but the training is still funded in exactly the same way, and obviously they can apply to Tor Logic. Can you just confirm that that's correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's spot on, Pam. So the apprenticeship funding in terms of the training costs is there regardless of whether it's an existing employee or a new recruit to the business. So whether that's 100% or 95% funded, as I talked about earlier. But yeah, the incentive grant that's available of either £3,000 or £4,000 for employers is very much a nudge, I suppose, from government to encourage industry to continue to bring new people into the business and onto their payroll. So if they haven't been on the payroll before, prior to them starting on the 1st of April onwards, you'd be entitled to that incentive. Actually, the incentive has been around since the start of August on a slightly less generous basis, but as it's mid-March now, we'll just focus on the incentives from the 1st of April onwards. But yeah, new recruits to the business, you'd be entitled to £3,000 or £4,000 depending on the age of the apprentice. Existing staff, not the grant, but very much still get the support in terms of the training costs.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. And just a quick question for Michaela, because I'm conscious of time. We're coming up to an hour now. Am I right in thinking, are there any other centres offering this foundry-specific qualification around the country? Michaela, are you there?
I do apologise. I've muted my mic there. No, there are no other providers of this particular apprenticeship in the sort of length and breadth of England. We are the only provider of it.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and obviously, I think you mentioned endpoint assessment, and we know that the Institute of Cast Metals Engineers is in the process of just going through the registration process to carry out the endpoint assessment, and I think the first apprentices who've been on programme for the last 3 years or so are due to start rolling off the end of that. So that's really encouraging. Well, I think, as I say, we're pretty much out of time for the hour that we've allowed for this. I'd really like to thank all the presenters for taking the time to speak today. We are recording the session, so the recording will be available in the next couple of days, and we'll certainly, we can have that available. We'll probably put it on our website, but certainly contact our office if you want to have access to that. I think it's fair to say as well that, I mean, we definitely know there are skill shortages in the industries, and we know that from the amount of people that are advertising. And if we ask our members, it's one of their hot topics. What's the biggest challenge you have? Well, it's skills. So I think there's a fantastic facility here. I would encourage all of you employers to take advantage of it and to find out about it. And as I say, added to that, we've got so many young people now who will be looking for an opportunity, looking to add value. We really need to work together to future-proof the industry. So obviously, if you are interested, I can encourage you to contact Ian from the college. Just to start, we'll handhold you the whole way through, or feel free to contact any of the team who've been speaking today, or our office, obviously, and we'll try and signpost you. So with that, I think I'll say thank you very much to everybody for taking the time to join us this afternoon. I hope you found it informative. If we haven't addressed any questions you have, then as I say, do please contact us thereafter. But thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.